Hello, welcome to my channel, my supernatural diaries. I'm here to talk to you, bro and sis, regarding the prodigal spouse. This is the series of the ordained spouse, prodigal spouse series. This is chapter 69, part 1. And yes, in fact, I'm going to share another prophetic word regarding the prodigal spouse not returning to you. And I know that's a very difficult message to receive for those who have been standing for their prodigal spouse to return to them. This decision was made in April. This prophetic word was given to me on 10/6/2025. That means there was some time there. And now the prodigal spouse did not take advantage of that time to turn from their ways. And that is not on you. Part of this journey, okay, is removing yourself from the guilt and from the responsibility of saving people. Okay? Removing yourself from what you cannot control. From that mindset of trying to control something that you cannot control. Okay? And that has been the heartache of it all. That has been the delay of you letting go in the proper time frame so that you can be in your divine alignment, is because you were enforcing your will. And your will is you want everybody to be saved, and you want everybody to turn their life around, and you want everybody to follow the commandments, and you want everybody to not suffer. Okay? Because you have a good heart. You're very empathetic, and you have been listening to prophetic words, and you know the consequences for their actions, and you know it's coming, and it already has. If you listen to chapter 61, part 3, you will know it's already been occurring. Okay? And so it's difficult, but it doesn't subtract what's going to happen. Okay? You worrying about it more, and you enforcing your way by overly providing advice and overly fasting and praying for a circumstance that the Most High didn't even tell you to do so. Okay? That's not going to make it happen all the more. He only will listen to your prayers if it's of the will of His own will. So when you pray, you make sure you say, if it be your will. Why? Because you remove your status from being a God, and you allow Him to be the one, to be the deciding factor. And many of you are being delivered from the burden of the prodigal spouse. Okay? Especially the one that does not return. And the way that you're being delivered is not that he turns it around and all of a sudden he's made brand new in the Most High. Okay? It's that you removed yourself from that equation. It's that you were given the opportunity to uplift that burden, and you took that opportunity. Okay? The Most High doesn't remove problems from your life, but He does help you get through them. And right now, the warfare is over. So all of that strife and all of the time that you said you can't take it anymore, This is the time frame that heaven is stepping in. Okay? And the Most High has wonderful plans for you. Okay? He did not leaving you stranded all alone. He has an ordained spouse for you. Hallelujah. So jump for joy for that. And this prophetic word, I'm going to provide it in a dream. Okay? And this is how I receive confirmation. And the reason why I need to share it, because the dream kind of elaborates on things may looking somewhat up. The prodigal spouse may be trying to do touch and go. Okay, you might be seeing potential of change. Okay, but what this journey of healing is, you're not focusing on their potential, because that's how you got into that relationship to begin with. You saw all the potential that they could be. Okay, they made all these promises. At first it was great, but realizing later it was a dismissive avoidant relationship. And then they could not meet you at a deeper level in intimacy and connection. It was always surface level. It was always breadcrumbs. And then they would do touch and go. So they would connect with you, show their potential, and then they will pull away right when you needed the most support and abandon you to deal with it on your own. Okay? That is the pattern. So right now, this dream is explaining something of the sort. And we're not diving in with heart in hand to those who do not take good care of our hearts. Okay? And in other words, they didn't do the inner work, and they're not going to. Not right now anyway. Or they may not at all for the rest of their lives. And I know that's very difficult to hear. But I would not be correct if I just gave prophetic words and made it up. I'm not the type of person that just makes up things. Anyway, I have to say the truth. And the truth hurts sometimes. And the Most High is trying to tell you, just because it hurts your feelings, and just because you're thinking about them and you want them to be saved and you want them to not suffer and you want it not to hurt, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, which is to detach. Okay? A lot of people want deliverance from their enemies and from the wicked ones, but they don't realize that sometimes those enemies are your own family members. They don't realize that it's going to hurt very bad. And it might not be because you love them in that way. It might be because you're worried about their soul making it to heaven. Okay? Because during this time, as you've been listening to the prophetic words, the attraction has already died out. You're not equally yoked with that person. You've not been intimate with that person, right? You've been holding your standards, and these are also counterfeit boyfriends that I'm talking about, not just husbands, that you've been detaching yourself from because you're waiting for the ordained spouse. All right, so you're not equally yoked, and that's very important because you don't want to be bringing in all their evil spirit, familiar spirits into this new relationship the Most High has for you. You're already in your healing journey, and if you're being equally yoked with somebody, that means being sexually intimate with somebody that they're really not holy, they're really not righteous, they don't have any integrity, they don't have any accountability. Okay? They also could be someone that are narcissistic. You can carry on those negative attributes just by being equally yoked with them. And then you have to do a whole deliverance all over again, whole revamp of, healing from depression and or anxiety and or OCD or anything, whatever they got going on. Okay? You don't want to carry on. And I also recommend that you don't wear the clothes their clothing. Like not a jacket or anything, or sweater. Like remove it from your closet. You can't have any of their things mingled in with yours. And that sounds harsh. Sorry, not sorry. Okay? Because you're over here in your feminine baddie era. Feminine queen baddie era, right? And you're not making yourself small. You're setting your standards high. You're able to say no. You're able to say what you like and you don't like. Okay? You're able to have a different opinion than other people and not just, go with the flow, be a follower. All right? You're able to keep your agenda and not bend over backwards, forgetting about your own agenda just because others want you to. You have your own thing going on, okay? And you need to be in that mentality because that's the new wardrobe. You need to have that going forward, even when your ordained spouse comes into the picture, if not already. You don't drop everything just because he's finally here. You continue to do your own thing. You continue, and he is then included and added to your already joyful self and your happiness. Okay? And you let him plan the dates. And you have a lot of self-care and self-love. Okay, let's dive in. The dream. In this dream, there's this couple. They were talking about packing because they were going to move. And they are standing right outside looking at these houses that look like lot divisions, kind of like a real estate layout where they explain it with lots, and they have these divisions in the land for that is for either purchasing land, okay, and or in a neighborhood they have set section. They're all in sections, okay, and margins and lots, okay. It looks like quadrants. Could look like rectangular quadrants, okay? So that's what they see here. And it kind of looks like a weird angle. Sometimes they're not immaculately like square. They got additional acreage, okay, added. And so it looked like there was houses stacked right next to each other. They're about the same size, okay? There could be a nice neighborhood. There's just that the houses are closer together, okay? And they don't have much land going around the house, like landscape area. Then this couple went to go see a new house, and it was a newly constructed house, and they were on sale. And the company that was selling these houses or that family were excited for these people to live there, okay, and to buy the house. And this house was huge. It had a country kitchen interior design, so it looked like it had a pizza oven type fireplace within the large kitchen. like it was made out of stone and or brick. And it had an enormous island counter with many cabinets, okay, all around. And now they went to the backyard, and they're standing in the middle of the yard, and there are several garden beds with veggies and shrubs already growing inside of these garden beds. And the yard looks immensely large, not the small homes that are stacked right next to each other, and they have like a bit of yard in the front and a bit of yard in the back. This was a vast piece of land. Could have been about an acre. Now, somehow the new landlords, it was a man and a woman, had already told the current landlord, where this couple was living at currently, that they were already moving out and going to be living at their house, where they're renting their home, right? Living there. And now the current landlords that this couple was living at were now concerned, because now they knew they had signed a 2-year lease, and the 2-year lease is not up yet where they currently live. And so upon looking at the contract, the rental agreement, the years of the contract popped up in very large print, and it read, new lease begins 2027 to 2058. And so this woman explains to the landlord that don't worry, that they are not going to be moving out until the lease is up. Okay, so if the lease is up around, let's say April 2027, then that's when they would initiate the new move to that new mansion house. Okay, and when upon standing in the yard, looking up at the house looked absolutely enormous. So that's why I'm saying mansion. It didn't look like a regular size house. So that means there's an upgrade happening. That means there's a promotion occurring in your life coming very soon, because it didn't look like the same size house that they currently are in, and the one that they're currently in is pretty big already. Okay, it looks to be like a 3-bedroom with office space, and there's yard in the front, and there's a small yard in the back, and it's like a elongated yard. And it's fenced in, and it has very nice landscape in a very nice, prestigious neighborhood currently. Okay, because in the current location, you're at the stop right before the promised land. That's why the following home, that's a mansion, is the promised land. All right, it would also obviously be bigger and better. So now what happened was, in that moment, they were talking about needing to start packing even a whole year prior. They were thinking of they're getting really excited, and they need to start packing, right? So when I researched the number 2027, it gave a Proverbs 24:11. If thou forbear to deliver them that are drawn unto death, and those that are ready to be slain. Ellicott's commentary for the English readers. This means the crime of negligence. What is called the missionary spirit is not else that the Christian church work in a particular direction. If a man has a conviction, the health of his own soul, his reverence for the truth he has learnt to love, his necessary connection with other men, make it a duty, a necessity, and a joy to tell what he has heard. and to speak what he believes. On these common grounds rests the whole obligation of Yahuwah's followers to speak the gospel which they have received. Only the obligation presses on them with greater force because of the higher worth of the word and the deeper misery of men without it. So during this entire time, if you have a prophetic calling and or you receive prophetic word through watching these videos on these channels, and you share the prophetic word to those that need to hear it, okay, you are not being negligent, okay? You did your duty. But if you did not share it and you kept it to yourself because you felt they're not going to listen anyway, and or you're embarrassed, and or you feel like that's not your calling. It is everybody's calling to share the gospel, by the way. It is not just those who have a prophetic calling. Now we have more of an obligation. We could also receive some plagues, serious consequences for not sharing what we need to say, good or bad, okay? And then the rest is up to you to understand and to receive it and take action. And we are no longer accountable for whatever happens, right? Okay, but the prodigal spouse was also needing to share the gospel, okay? Also needing to partake in the commandments, also needing to have fruits of the Spirit. All right, so it continues to say, excuse of negligence. The shuffling plea, behold, we knew it not, is a cowardly lie. It omits the responsibility to knowledge and pretends in ignorance, which is knows to be partly a false excuse, and is so far as it is true to be our own fault. We are bound to know, and the most ignorant of us does know, and cannot help knowing enough to condemn our negligence. Okay. Our ignorance, so far as it is real, is the result of a sinful... Okay, so what's going on is the Most High shows the potential of what could have occurred with the prodigal spouse if they would have returned. Okay? Then he's saying with this 2027 that there's a negligence happening. So that person was advised of the word of the Most High. He was advised of the prophetic warnings. And maybe they want to pretend that they never heard it. And then there's common sense that the Most High is saying that everybody has. Okay? And now let's continue on. So insofar as the excuse we knew it not is true, it is no excuse but an indictment. It lays bare the truth reason of the criminal negligence as being a yet more criminal as to woe and loss in which such crowds of men whom we ought to recognize as brethren are sunken. Now, the number 2058. And it says, it means H, so it's a Hebrew number, 2058, Vapsi, which means rich, father of Nabi, the man chosen as the spy of Naphtali. Numbers 13:14. Matthew Henry's Concise Commentary. This is where it gets kind of intense, okay? It means, of the turning back of Israel from the borders of Canaan and the sentencing them to wander and perish in the wilderness for their unbelief and murmuring. So, some people are waiting for more alarming crimes, such as, let's say physical violence, and or let's say murder, or let's say sexual immorality. Okay, you're thinking for sure those crimes will not make it into the promised land. But right here it's saying, for their unbelief. So unbelief in the Most High, unbelief in the prophetic word, lacking faith, unbelief of consequences or divine judgment coming. Okay, unbelief that could possibly happen if they misbehave and are very sinful natured and blow off all attempts of righteousness, all attempts of repenting. Okay, it also says murmuring, so slander and gossip. Murmuring in the sense of complaining. What did the people do when the Israelites, when they were in the wilderness, and even at the last location right before the promised land? They were complaining about being very thirsty for water. And you're just like, can't they be thirsty for water? I mean, come on now, they're in the desert. Yes, you can be thirsty for water. But I think the Most High is stating they lacked faith again, feeling totally abandoned and complaining that the Most High is never there for them, and started complaining to Moses in a ruthless manner, pretty much almost wishing that they were dead, and or wishing that they would have just stayed in Egypt and not ever escaped Egypt, going through the Red Sea moment, forgot all about all of the other miraculous wonders, signs and wonders that occurred throughout those 40 years. Okay, and just started talking trash. Started instead of just saying, can you please ask the Most High if he can provide a supernatural oasis, an occurrence, and just provide water for us? They didn't say it in that way. They're complaining. They're murmuring. They're talking down. Like, he abandoned us. You're saying it in the most lacking respect and reverence, and just not grateful. Being non-grateful causes murmuring, and that is not righteous, and that is not attractive. Besides not being attractive, that does not get you into the promised land. It says here, they had a better opinion of their own policy than of Yahuwah's wisdom. So basically they went with their own ideology, and they were their own self-idol. Okay? And they did that on a continuous basis. And every single time wisdom came directly at them, they brushed it off. Thus, we ruin ourselves by believing the reports and representations of sense rather than divine revelation. We walk by sight, not by faith. Moses gave the spies this charge: be of good courage. It was not only a great undertaking they were put upon, which required good management and resolution, but a great trust was reposed in them, which required that they should be faithful. Courage is in such circumstances can only spring from strong faith, which Caleb and Joshua alone possessed. So Gil's exposition of the entire Bible says, of the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi, the son of Vapsi. So prior to entering the promised land, there's spies going into the promised land. There's Israelites, and a couple of them was Caleb and Joshua. And so Yahuwah the Most High is going to have you scope out the location before he delivers it into your hands. And upon coming back, some of them, others were really scared because they witnessed some giants there. And they said, oh, it's too scary. It's impossible to take over that land. Everybody give up on that pipe dream. And some of these prodigal spouses could be thinking that these miracles, signs and wonders are not going to happen. Like, for instance, the prodigal children returning. They could be talking trash and or lack of faith and saying, just stop thinking about it. Just stop praying about it. Just stop desiring it, because they're never going to turn from their ways. They're saying negative things like that. Okay? And maybe other people around you just don't even try because you could tell, I talked to them already and they're not into it. But you know what? That's murmuring. And their fear settled in. And they're running off of fear and doubt rather than running off of faith and what the Most High told you is going to happen. So don't lose faith, right? And so obviously where the Most High is going to take you, there's going to be other higher level demonic powers that you're going to have to, it's a conquest. Okay? And so it may look a bit intimidating. Now, when the Most High is telling you, hey, you're going to live in a mansion in the future, to some it may sound like that is too good to be true. That can't even happen. Because you look at your income or you look at your credit score and you're just like, how is that even happening? Okay? And maybe none of your other family members on either side of your family live in mansions. They live in really nice houses, but they don't live in mansions. So you're going to be like, how is this even possible? Now, the Most High doesn't want you to think negative. Because if he called you to this channel and he called you to be a chosen one, okay? The chosen people get to live in mansions. Can we just say that? All right? And then you serve a deity, the one and only, the one who has gifts in heaven already, angels ready to expedite their censor to create creative miracles upon request. Okay? And then you have to remember all the other signs and wonders that occurred already in your life. And you have to remember and have faith that he's building kingdom families and he's providing a wealth transfer. Of course it can happen. And then if you're set to have a promotion, of course it can happen, right? Okay, so he's talking about spies. And Hosea, the original name of Joshua was Hosea, okay? And his name was changed to Joshua. And he received Moses' mantle of prophetic voice and leader. Okay, the staff of authority. And that is who's going into the promised land. Moses did not make it into the promised land, remember? Because he was murmuring and he was hasty. And he did not directly obey the Most High. He didn't speak to the rock, he struck it. The Most High didn't say strike it. He said speak to it. This is critical times right now. You got to do exactly what the Most High said to do. And you're only in charge and in control of your own actions. You're not in charge and control of the prodigal spouse. Okay, of how they're going to behave during this time. So thank you so much for joining me on this Supernatural Diaries journey. Stay tuned for more revelations. Shalom.